On July 9th, 1816, in the quiet northern town of San Miguel de Tucumán, far from the roar of cannons or the noise of crowded capitals, a gathering of men made a decision that would change the course of a continent. They came not as kings or emperors, not backed by grand armies or vast fortunes, but as delegates, chosen by their provinces, sent with trembling hope and cautious ambition. What they signed that day was more than parchment and ink. It was a severing of chains, a loud and final break from centuries of foreign rule. In that modest whitewashed building, they declared the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata, what would later become Argentina, free and independent from the Spanish crown and from any other foreign domination. And just like that, a new nation was born, not yet fully formed, but undeniably alive. But this moment was not sudden. It was the crest of a long wave of resistance, a tide that had been building for years, even decades. To understand the power of what happened that day, one must go back to a time when the Spanish Empire stretched like a shadow across South America. For over 300 years, Spain controlled vast territories in the New World. Its ships brought religion, law, language, and domination. The Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata, created in 1776, encompassed modern-day Argentina, Bolivia, Uruguay, and parts of Paraguay and Brazil. Buenos Aires, the capital, was a growing port city, yet it remained at the mercy of distant monarchs and colonial governors. For the people who lived there, merchants, ranchers, farmers, soldiers, Spain was both protector and prison guard. Trade was restricted. Decisions were made in Madrid. Local voices were muffled beneath the weight of royal authority. Resentment brewed slowly, like a pot left too long over a fire. And then, from across the Atlantic, something extraordinary happened. In 1808, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Spain and forced King Ferdinand VII to abdicate, replacing him with his own brother, Joseph Bonaparte. Suddenly, the supposed divine right of Spanish kings was in question. If the throne in Spain could be taken so easily, what legitimacy did colonial governors still possess? This power vacuum shook the very foundation of Spanish authority in the Americas. In Buenos Aires, the question turned political. If there was no legitimate king, who had the right to rule? On May 25, 1810, a group of citizens, educated, organized, and inspired, forced the viceroy to resign and form their own local government. It was a moment that would be remembered as the May Revolution, and it marked the true beginning of Argentina's path to independence. Though this new government still claimed to govern in the name of the absent Ferdinand VII, the reality was clear. The people had taken control. What followed were 6 turbulent years of conflict, division, and uneasy alliances. Revolutionary leaders sought to expand their influence, but not all provinces agreed. Civil wars broke out. Some regions wanted strong, centralized control from Buenos Aires. Others demanded autonomy. Meanwhile, royalist forces loyal to Spain fought to restore order and retake lost territories. The dream of a united, independent nation seemed both tantalizing and out of reach. Still, the cause endured. Great figures emerged, visionaries like Manuel Belgrano, who not only led armies but designed the national flag, José de San Martín, who would later cross the Andes to liberate Chile and Peru, and Martín Miguel de Güemes, who defended the Northwest against royalist invasions. Their courage and commitment gave life to the revolution, even as political chaos threatened to undo it. By early 1816, the revolutionary government knew that symbolic gestures were no longer enough. The world needed to hear a clear voice. The people needed a declaration that they were no longer subjects of any king, no longer bound by invisible chains to a crumbling empire. And so, a Congress was called, not in Buenos Aires, which was too exposed and politically volatile, but in the safer, quieter city of Tucumán. Delegates began arriving in March of that year. They came on horseback, by carriage, or even on foot, enduring the hardships of travel for the sake of something greater than themselves. These were not idealists lost in theory. They were practical men, lawyers, clergy, landowners, and former soldiers. They carried with them the hopes of cities, towns, and villages spread across the rugged vastness of the land. They also carried the scars of war and the burden of uncertainty. For months, the Congress debated. They argued not only over whether to declare independence, but what kind of government should follow. Should they establish a monarchy or a republic? Should they seek protection from Britain or the United States? How would they deal with internal dissent and external threats? Opinions clashed, tensions flared, but despite their differences, one truth slowly gained ground. The time for ambiguity had passed. It was now or never. Then came the day, July 9th, 1816. The delegates gathered in the low, sunlit hall of the Congress. A hush fell over the room as the clerk read aloud the resolution. It stated, in clear and ringing terms, that the United Provinces of South America were free and independent from the King of Spain and his successors, and from any other foreign power. One by one, the delegates stepped forward to sign the Acta de la Independencia, their names etched not only onto paper, but into history. The mood was solemn, but not somber. Outside, word spread quickly. Bells rang. People cheered. The skies above Tucumán held the same sun as the day before, yet everything had changed. A nation had spoken. It had declared its right to exist. But independence on paper did not mean peace in practice. In the years that followed, Argentina would continue to face enormous challenges. The Spanish crown did not recognize the declaration. Royalist forces remained active in the region. Meanwhile, the new nation struggled to define itself. Deep divisions between centralists and federalists ignited civil wars. Economies faltered. Leaders rose and fell. Yet through it all, the spirit of July 9th endured. The house where the Congress met still stands today, preserved as a national monument. Tourists walk its halls, imagining the weight of the decisions made there. Schoolchildren learn the names of the signers. Streets and towns are named in their honor. But more than buildings or ceremonies, the true legacy of that day lives in the enduring identity of a people who chose freedom over submission. Argentina did not emerge overnight, fully formed. Its journey was complex, messy, and unfinished. But it began in earnest on that day in Tucumán, with conviction, with courage, and with a vision of a future not given by a king, but chosen by its own citizens. And so, every year, on July 9th, the people of Argentina remember. They raise their flags, sing their anthems, and reflect on a simple truth, that independence is not a gift, it is a fight, a promise, a belief. And that belief, once declared, echoes louder than any crown.